You are here for light bulbs in the break room sink, Fry, not to play doctor with my vault.
Your relock is dragging.
My what?
The bolt that slams shut if the alarm ever trips. It is catching. It does not seat clean anymore.
So oil it and go fix the sink.
I am telling you, it is dangerous.
If the power drops and that bolt throws while somebody is standing inside, this door does not open in the morning. It does not open at all. It is a time lock. It runs on a clock. It has opened every morning for 40 years.
Clocks I trust. It is the jammed bolt behind the clock that kills people. A box this size, sealed, 2 people in it. 2 hours of air. Maybe. Then the vault decides for them, and there is not a man in this county who gets it open in time.
And what would a handyman know about that? Wendell put the stethoscope in his coat, and something in his face closed like a drawer. I used to open the ones nobody else could. Safes. Vaults. The ones where the owner died with the combination still inside. You. Me. They called me when the clock was wrong. He got up off his knee, slow. A long time ago. A young teller named Delia Hobbs looked up from her drawer like a page had just turned in a book she thought she had finished. A lock is not a thing you beat, Wendell said. It is a thing you listen to. Force it, and it holds forever. Listen to it, and it lets you in. Halloran laughed, one note, and went to his office to wait out the last 20 minutes before close, and outside the tall front windows, the sky over Ashby had gone the green-black of a bad summer storm coming down off the county line. And none of them, not the manager, not the tellers, not the old man putting a stethoscope back in his coat, knew that the last ordinary sentence any of them would say for 2 hours had already been said. Delia Hobbs came around the counter with the deposit bags and found Wendell rolling his tools into a canvas wrap. Was that true? She said, quiet, so the office would not hear. What you said, that you used to open safes nobody else could. It was true. Then why do you fix our sink? Wendell looked at her, and it was the first time in a year of good mornings that he had really looked at her. A girl of 23 with a name tag and tired eyes and a kindness she had not yet learned to be embarrassed by. Because a sink does not care what you used to be, he said. It just wants to drain. There is a peace in a thing that does not care what you used to be. He rolled the last wrench into the canvas. Tell me your name. I have known it a year. I would just like to hear you say it, because most people in this building decided a long time ago that I did not need to have it. Delia. Delia. Thank you for the good mornings. You are the only one in here who spends them on me. She almost said something back, and then the office door opened and Halloran leaned out. Delia, when you are done chatting with maintenance, I need you on the cart. And the way he said the word maintenance was the way some men say a word they believe is a whole insult by itself. Delia felt her face go hot on the old man's behalf. Wendell did not react at all, because a man who has already lost the one thing that mattered does not have much left over to spend on a manager's tone. Earl Moss, coming on for the night, held the back door as Wendell carried his tools out. You warn him about that relock again, Moss said. I did. He never listens, Earl. It is not a listening kind of place. It came at close to 5, the way these things do, all at once and for no single reason. The storm hit the substation up the county road, and the lights in the branch browned down to nothing and came back on the emergency circuit, dim and red. In the same half-second, a power surge tripped the alarm board, and the board, not knowing a surge from a masked man with a note, read the whole thing as a holdup and did the one thing it was built to do, which was seal the money. Somewhere in the wall, a relay closed. The great round vault door, which stood open all day the way vault doors do, swung on its hydraulic and shut itself with a sound like a church closing, and the boltwork threw. All of it. And the emergency relock, the one Wendell Fry had told the manager about not 20 minutes before, threw behind the boltwork and did not seat clean and jammed. And on the wrong side of it, in the dark, were 2 people. Brent Halloran had gone into the vault at 4:58 to move a cash cart, and he had told Delia Hobbs to come help him with it, because a manager does not carry his own carts. So when the door shut, it shut on both of them. The man who ran the branch and the 23-year-old who counted the second drawer, and the last of the daylight went away with a boom of steel. And the emergency lights inside were a single red bulb, and the air was the air that was already in the room, and that was all the air there was going to be. Delia heard herself make a sound she had never made before. Then she heard Halloran's hands hit the door. Hey! Hey! He hit it flat, both palms, the way panic hits a thing. The door. Open the door. Somebody open the door. We are in here. We are in the vault. Open it. Mr. Halloran? Delia's own voice came out thin. The walls were very close, and it was the smallest room she had ever been in, and it had just locked. Mr. Halloran, they know we are in here. They saw us go in. They're going to open it. They cannot open it. It is on the time lock. Nobody can open it until morning. Do you understand what that means? His voice was climbing. It means we are in here until morning. In here, with the air in here. Delia felt the walls take a step in toward her. She had always hated small rooms, and some animal part of her wanted to join him, to hit the door with him, to scream until the screaming used up whatever was left. She stood in the red dark and felt that want, and she did the only thing she knew how to do with a want like that, which was handed a task. Okay, she said mostly to herself. Okay, we are not doing that. Both of us hitting the door does not open the door. It just spends the air. She made her voice flat and even, the way you talk to a spooked animal or to yourself. Brent, stop hitting it. Come sit down with me. We sit and we breathe slow and we wait because somebody out there watched us walk in, and panicking is the one thing that can actually kill us in the next 10 minutes. So we are not going to do it. You do not know that anybody can even... I do not know anything, Delia said, but I know breathing fast in a locked box is how you lose. My mom taught me that, and not about boxes, about everything. So sit, please. And to her own amazement, the man who ran the branch slid down the wall and sat, because in the total dark, the only thing anybody has is a voice that sounds like it has a plan. And Delia Hobbs, who did not have a plan, had a voice that sounded like one, and in the dark that turned out to be the same thing. And Delia, who had said good morning to an old man every day for a year because it seemed like the decent thing to do, put her hand flat on the cold inside of the door, and on the other side of 18 inches of steel, so did Wendell Fry. Out in the branch, it was chaos of the useless kind, everybody moving and nobody helping. A teller had the phone. The assistant manager was reading the alarm panel out loud like the panel would change its mind. Earl Moss, the night guard, 56 and built like a man who had once been a bigger man, had his own hands on the vault door and was calling Halloran's name into the seam. Brent, Delia, can you hear me? Moss had his mouth to the crack of the door. A muffled pounding came back, and under it, thin, a voice. They are alive. They are on the door. Shaw. The alarm company is not picking up, said the teller with the phone, her voice going high. What do we do? What do we do? Somebody call the fire department. I already called the fire department. Then call them again. It was the sound a room makes when it has a dozen hands and not one of them knows what to do with the thing in front of it. Wendell had still been out in the lot, loading the last of his tools, when the windows went red with the emergency lights. He came back in through the door Earl had held open for him not 5 minutes before, because a man who has heard a relock drag does not drive away from a brownout. Wendell Fry did not join the noise. He got his stethoscope out of his coat, and he knelt at the door, and he listened, and after a while he said the thing that turned the whole room around. Everybody stopped talking. They did not stop, so Earl Moss said it, louder, with the authority of a uniform, and then they stopped. Wendell listened a while longer. He moved the bell of the stethoscope an inch, listened, moved it again. His eyes were closed. When he opened them, he did not look like a handyman. Here's the one piece of luck we have, and it is a thin one, he said. That time lock never got wound. It whines when you lock up at close, and that door shut itself 2 minutes early, on its own, before anybody said it. So there is no clock counting down inside this door. It shut early and empty. Meaning what? Moss said. Meaning the only things holding it are the boltwork and that jammed relock lying across it sideways. Wendell moved the stethoscope a fraction, which cuts 2 ways. It will not open in the morning because there is no time lock in there to release the bolts and open it. And it will not open on its own, ever, because the jam is holding those bolts right where they sit. He looked up at Moss. But a clock you cannot argue with, a jam you can. A jam, if you are patient enough with it, you can ask to let go. This door is sealed, Earl. But it is not sealed by a clock. It is sealed by one stuck piece of steel, and a stuck piece of steel is a thing that a man might be able to move. The room went quiet in a different way. How long do they have? Moss said. That is a vault built to keep men out, which means it is built to keep air out too. 2 people, that size of a box. Wendell did the arithmetic he had spent a career doing and hated doing now. A couple of hours, maybe, if they stay calm. Less if they panic, and the one in there with her is already panicking. I can hear him on the door. Somebody said they should call the fire department, and the fire department was coming, but the fire department was 40 minutes out because a bridge on the county road was underwater, and the fire department, when it got here, was going to look at a modern vault door and know what Wendell Fry already knew, which is that you do not cut into 2 feet of hardened steel and concrete in an hour, not without heat that would cook the air out of the box faster than the box was cooking it on its own. That was when the speakerphone on the counter came alive, and the voice that came out of it was calm and far away, and belonged to a man who was not in the room and was not going to be. "This is regional security for the vault manufacturer," the voice said. "We have the alarm on our board. I need everyone to listen carefully. Nobody is to touch that door. Nobody is to attempt any manipulation of the mechanism. We are dispatching a certified vault team. Interfering with the lock voids every protection on that vault and makes the bank liable for anything that happens. Do not let anyone who is not certified put a hand on that door. Am I clear?" "When does your team get here?" Moss said. "Duh. They are coming from the regional office. Given the weather, 3 to 4 hours. Moss looked at Wendell. Wendell was already listening to the door again. "They do not have 3 to 4 hours, Moss said into the phone. "Then I am very sorry, but the answer is still that no unauthorized person touches that vault. That is the protocol. It exists for a reason." The voice was not unkind. The voice was worse than unkind. It was reasonable. "I understand this is difficult. Wait for the team." And there it was, the hole of the wall Wendell Fry was standing behind. And it was not a man he could argue with. It was a voice on a speaker doing exactly what it was built to do. The same as the alarm board, the same as the relock, a system doing its job right into the middle of 2 people's air. A bank decides a man's worth by the desk he sits at. A locked door does not care about desks. It only opens for the one who bothered to learn it. Ashby County Savings had spent a year deciding Wendell Fry was worth $11 an hour and a nickname. And tonight the only thing on earth that could save 2 of its people was the exact thing it had decided did not count. "He is right. We have to wait," said the assistant manager, a young man named Pryor who had been at the branch 6 months and knew every rule and nothing else. "We cannot let a handyman touch the vault. If it goes wrong, it is on the bank. That is the policy. The policy exists for exactly this." "The policy," Moss said, "was written by a man in an office who is not standing here listening to a girl run out of air. The policy is the policy, Earl. Then you walk over and you put your mouth on that steel and you tell Delia Hobbs that the policy says she waits for a team stuck behind a flooded bridge." Moss did not raise his voice. "Go on, tell her by name. I will hold your spot." Pryor did not go put his mouth on the steel. Nobody ever does. It is easy to say wait for the certified team from behind a counter, and it is impossible to say it to a person's actual name through a door. And that gap, that exact gap, is where every disaster in the world lives. Wendell took the stethoscope out of his ears. "Earl," he said, "you have known me 11 years. I have. You know what I used to be. I know exactly what you used to be, Wendell. I checked a long time ago because I do not work next to a man I have not checked." Moss did not look away from him. "You were the best in 3 states. When a court sealed a dead man's safe and needed it open clean for the family, they called you. When a bank's own people locked themselves out of their own money, they called you. You never broke a thing you opened." He glanced at the speaker on this counter, at the dark vault door, at the young teller's name on the duty board. "So I am going to ask you a question, and I am going to stand in front of that phone while you answer it, because whatever it says, I am the security on this branch tonight, and this is my call to make, and I am making it. Can you open that door?" Wendell Fry looked at the door for a long moment. He had promised himself 12 years ago, standing in a courtroom, that he would never put his hands on a live lock with a life behind it again. He had kept that promise every single day since, and keeping it had been the one clean thing in a life that had gone to pieces, and he was about to break it. "I can try," he said. "It is not certain. A jammed relock is the worst thing there is, because it can go 2 ways. You feel your way to where it wants to release, and it releases. Or you get impatient and you force it, and it seats the rest of the way and locks that door until somebody brings a torch. And by then," he did not finish that. "If I try and I do it right, they walk out. If I try and I rush it, I bury them. Those are the 2 doors, Earl. There is no third one. And if you do nothing, then the reasonable voice on the phone gets to be right, and a girl who says good morning to me suffocates in the dark 18 inches from my hands while I wait for a certified man to drive over a flooded bridge." Wendell put the stethoscope back in his ears. "So no, I am not doing nothing. Turn that phone off or turn it around because I need it quiet, and get me every light you can find, and get me a chair because I am 60 years old and this is going to take a while." Moss reached over and muted the speaker on the man who was still, distantly, saying the word protocol. Wendell Fry knelt at the door. Inside, in the red dark, Delia Hobbs was doing the hardest thing she had ever done, which was talk to a man who had stopped being able to talk. Halloran had gone from hitting the door to sitting against the cash cart with his knees up and his breath coming too fast. And Delia knew enough to know that breathing like that in a room with a fixed amount of air was the worst thing a person could do. And she knew it the way you know things when your whole body is trying to do the same thing, and you are holding it back by your fingernails. Mr. Halloran, Brent, look at me. You have to slow your breathing down. She got in front of him, close, in the little red light. We are using up the air. Both of us. Fast breathing uses it faster. I need you to breathe slow with me, okay? In for 4. I know it feels wrong. Do it anyway. In for 4. We're going to die in here. Maybe, but not from the door and not from the dark. If we die in here, it is going to be because we breathed all the air in a panic in the first 20 minutes, and I am not going to let us do that, so breathe with me. In for 4, please. He breathed with her. Badly at first, then better. And Delia Hobbs, 23 years old, terrified of small spaces, sat in the smallest, darkest space of her life and ran a breathing count for the man who signed her paychecks and had never once learned her name. And that was when she heard it, faint through the steel, on the outside of the door. A tapping, not random, slow, spaced, deliberate, and then, muffled and small and impossibly steady, a voice. Delia. The old man's voice. Wendell, through 18 inches of steel. Delia, if you can hear me, put your hand flat on the door, low, near the bottom hinge side. She scrambled and put her hand where he said, and on the other side she felt, more than heard, 2 taps under her palm. I can hear you, she said into the steel, and started to cry, and made herself stop, because crying breathed hard too. I can hear you. It is Delia. Mr. Halloran is here. He is scared. I have got him breathing slow. There is not a lot of air. I know. I am going to get you out. It is going to take me some time, and it is going to be quiet out here. And you are going to think I have left, and I have not left. Every few minutes I am going to tap, so you know I am still here. 2 taps. That means I am still here, and it is still going to be fine. Can you do a thing for me? Yes. Keep him breathing slow, and keep yourself breathing slow. And do not let him touch the door, or the wheel, or anything on the inside, no matter what he does, because I am reading this lock from out here, and if he moves the works from in there while my hands are on it, I could lose it. His job and your job is to be still and breathe. That is the whole job. Everything else is mine. Do you understand? I understand. Good girl. 2 taps. Here they come. 2 taps under her hand. And Delia Hobbs turned around to the man dying of fear in the corner and said, that was Wendell, the handyman. He is out there, and he is going to open the door. And until he does, our whole job is to breathe slow and not touch anything. That is it. We can do that. Breathe with me. In for 4. Outside, Earl Moss had cleared everyone back to the teller line and turned off the branch music that nobody had thought to turn off. And now the only sound in the whole building was rain on the tall windows and an old man breathing slow with his ear pressed to a stethoscope pressed to a door. Wendell worked. Time in a job like that does not move the way it moves anywhere else. He would listen for a full minute and move the dial a hair and listen again and hear nothing he could use, and the clock on the wall would say 6 minutes had gone, and the clock in his chest would say the air in that box had gone with it. He built the lock in his head the way he had built 1,000 of them, the bolt work, the drive cam, the jammed relock lying across it all sideways like a fallen beam, and he felt for the one place where the jam was carrying the least load, the one place it might, if asked instead of forced, let go. Earl Moss stood a few feet back with his arms crossed and his eyes on the front windows, and every time a shoe scuffed or a radio crackled in from the parking lot, he lifted one hand without looking, and the sound stopped because he had appointed himself keeper of the one thing Wendell needed and could not make for himself, which was silence. Talk to me, Moss said once, very low, not to break the quiet, just to carry a little of it. Not the lock. You. You have not put your hands on a live one in 12 years. No. And the first one back is 2 people you cannot afford to lose. Now you know why my hands want to hurry, Wendell said, eyes shut. A man who has been away from a thing this long does not trust it will still come to him slow. He wants to grab it before it slips. That is exactly how you lose it. He moved the dial a hair. So keep them quiet, Earl. Quiet is the only thing on this earth helping me right now. Inside, Delia kept the count. In for 4. She had Halloran doing it now too, the 2 of them breathing in the dark like a strange slow machine. And every time the fear rose up in her, and it rose in waves, she pushed it back down by handing it a job. Wendell, you out there. She kept her voice slow the way he had asked. Talk to me. It is getting close in here, and I would rather hear a voice than the quiet. 2 taps, then faint through the steel. I am here. Tell me something. Keep it slow while you do. I have a brother, Delia said. Younger. I am saving for a place big enough that he can come live with me instead of where he is now. That is what the weekend job is for. That is why I count the second drawer, she breathed. So I would like to not die in a vault before I get him out of that house. That is my whole plan, Wendell. Get my brother. Do not die in a vault, in that order. Then that is the order we keep, Wendell said. You are going to get your brother. Give me a number every few minutes. How is the man doing? He is quiet now. He learned my name. He keeps saying it like he is holding on to it. That is a scared man come back to himself. Keep him there. And outside, Wendell moved the dial 1 hair and listened and got nothing and moved it back. And the wall clock ate another 6 minutes. And the air behind the door got a little more expensive, and he kept his hands soft, kept his hands soft, kept his hands soft, and it was the hardest thing he had ever asked them to do. And around the 90-minute mark, with the air in the box thin enough now that he could hear it in Delia's voice when he tapped and she answered, Wendell Fry felt the old thing rise up in him, and it was not fear, it was the opposite. It was the thing that had made him great, and the thing that had cost him everything. His hands wanted to hurry. He could feel the release. He was close. And the closer he got, and the thinner the air behind the door, the more his hands wanted to stop asking and start taking, to shove the dial that last quarter and force the jam to break the way he wanted it to break, right now. Faster, because a girl was running out of air, and every slow second was a cruelty, and his whole life, his whole gift, had always been the hands that could just make a thing happen. He got the tension wrench seated to force it. His wrist tightened. Wendell! Delia's voice, through the steel, small, and she could not have known what she was interrupting, except that maybe, on the other side of a door, you can hear a man's hands change their mind. Wendell, are you still there? You have not tapped in a while, and it is getting hard to think in here, and I just need to know you are still there. His wrist unlocked. He tapped twice. I'm here, he said. Are you okay? You sound... I do not know. You sound like you did that first time at the counter when Mr. Halloran was talking to you and you got quiet. I am okay. My mom used to say you cannot rush a jar lid, Delia said from the dark, because talking was better than the silence, and the silence was full of the sound of Halloran's breathing. If you force it, you strip the threads and then it never comes off. You have to line it up and let it go on easy. She said that about everything. Boyfriends, jobs, jar lids. A small broken sound that was almost a laugh. Take your time out there, okay? We are breathing slow. We are lined up. We are not going anywhere. Do not strip the threads on our account. And Wendell Fry knelt in the quiet of a closed bank with a tension wrench in a lock, and his dead marriage and his lost name and his son's face all standing behind him. And he took the wrench back out. Because that was the whole of it, right there, in a jar lid. A lock is not a thing you beat, he told himself. The sentence he had said 10,000 times and never once obeyed with his own 2 hands. It is a thing you listen to. Force it and it holds forever. Listen to it and it lets you in. That was what he had never learned. That was the thing that had cost him the only door that ever mattered. He set the stethoscope down for a second, and he pressed his forehead against the cold steel, and he said the thing, quietly, to the girl, because she had earned it, and because he needed to say it out loud before his hands could be trusted again. I had a son, Wendell said through the door. I have a son, Shane, 34 years old, and he has not spoken to me in 12 years. Okay, Delia said through the steel. I am listening. Keep talking. It helps me not think about the air. I taught him this. All of it. He had better hands at 20 than I had at 40. So what happened to him? He got in trouble. The real kind. Wrong men. Money he did not have. And he came to me. He sat in my kitchen and he tried to tell me what was happening to him. And you fixed it. Because that is what you do. I did not even listen to it. Wendell's voice got very careful. I heard maybe 2 sentences and I decided I already knew the shape of the whole thing. And I did what I always do. I forced it. I made calls. I moved money. I put my hands on the situation and I tried to make it open, right now, the way I open everything. And it did not open. It shut harder. He went to prison for 3 years for a thing that would have been almost nothing if I had just sat still in that kitchen and let my own boy finish telling me what he actually needed. Which was what? Delia said very soft. His father to be quiet and hear him. That was the whole of it. Wendell pressed his forehead against the cold steel. The last time he ever spoke to me, he said, you can open any lock in the world, Dad, except the one where you shut your mouth and listen to me. I have kept those words on me every single day since. And you almost did it again, Delia said. Just now. To us. I heard your hands change. I almost did it again just now. To you. He picked the stethoscope back up. A girl I have never once had a full conversation with told me about a jar lid and stopped me. So here's what happens now. I do this the way I should have done that night in my kitchen. Slow. Listening. Not 1 pound of force. It is going to feel like nothing is happening out here for a long while. Trust the nothing. The nothing is me finally doing it right. Then take all the nothing you need, Delia said. We are lined up in here. We are not going anywhere. 2 taps, Wendell said, and tapped and put his ear back to the steel. Somebody near the front said the fire trucks were 15 minutes out now, and Moss said 15 minutes might as well be next week, and nobody argued because by now they could all hear it. The way you hear a clock in a quiet house, 2 people behind the steel-breathing air that was mostly gone. Wendell, Moss said very low. I am not rushing you. I would never. I am only telling you what I see because you told me to. The girl's answers are coming slower. When you tap, she takes longer to tap back. I know, Wendell said, eyes shut, hand light on the dial. I can hear it too. That is the exact thing I cannot let into my hands. The last part took 11 minutes, and there is no way to make 11 minutes of a man listening to a lock sound like anything, because it was not anything to see. It was an old man on a chair with his eyes shut and his hand so light on the dial that a moth could have knocked it loose, in a room full of people holding a silence like a bowl of water they were afraid to spill, and a night guard standing between all of it and a muted phone, and behind the door 2 people breathing in for 4 in the thinning red dark, and every 90 seconds 2 taps. Inside, the count had gone ragged. Delia's in for 4 had stretched to in for 3, then to just in, then to a single word now and then, only to prove she was still there. Still here, she said to the steel when the taps came. Slower, but here. Take your time, we are lined up. 2 taps answered her, patient as a heartbeat, and she held onto them the way you hold a railing in a dark stairwell. Once, near the end, Halloran's nerve broke for a second, and his hand went out toward the big wheel on the inside of the door. The animal needed to do something, anything, and Delia caught his wrist in the dark. No, she whispered. He said not to touch it. Not the wheel, not the door, nothing. He is reading it from out there. You move it, you take it right out of his hands. She held on until the hand came back. We do the one thing, we breathe, let the man work. That was the closest it came to going wrong from the inside. 1 frightened man and 1 steady girl and a wheel not turned, and nobody on the outside ever knew how near it had been. Halloran, near the end, whispered a thing to Delia that she never told anyone, which was, I never learned your name. All this time. I am sorry. What is it? And she told him. And he said it back, Delia, like he was trying to have it memorized in case it was the last word he got. And that was the moment Brent Halloran stopped being the man who tossed his keys on the counter and became just a frightened person in the dark who had finally understood that the people around him had names. He was not beating it. For the first time in his whole life, with everything he had ever failed at writing on the outcome, Wendell Fry was not beating the thing in front of him. A lock is not a thing you beat. It is a thing you listen to. He had said the sentence for 40 years. He was finally living inside it, one held breath at a time. And on the outside, in the quiet, Wendell Fry felt the jam shift. Not break, shift. The relock asked one last time in exactly the right place, with exactly no force at all. Decided it would rather move than hold. The way even the most stubborn thing in the world will finally move if you stop shoving it and simply show it the way out. He felt the load come off the boltwork. He felt the drive cam come free. He did not smile and he did not breathe. He turned the handle, and 2 feet of hardened steel that a certified team 3 hours away had said no unauthorized person could move swung open on its hinge as easy as a kitchen cabinet. And the stale red dark of the vault met the cool air of the branch, and the air went in, and 2 people were sitting on the floor of it, alive, blinking, breathing, out. For a second, the only sound in the whole branch was 2 people pulling the cool air into their lungs like they were drinking it. Delia, Wendell said, quiet, kneeling at the mouth of the vault. Say something, so I know the voice matches the girl. It is Delia, she said, and it came out half a laugh and half the other thing. It matches. It is me. You did it. You did the slow thing and it worked. You did it, Wendell said. You kept the threads on the jar. All I did was turn the lid. Nobody cheered. It was not that kind of room. Earl Moss got Delia under the arms, and Halloran came out on his own hands and knees and sat on the floor of the branch with his back against the counter and put his face in his hands and did not care who saw. Somebody had the fire department on the phone saying they were a few minutes out now, the bridge finally passable, and Moss told them to come anyway for the two who needed air and a blanket. And Wendell Fry sat back on his chair with his stethoscope in his lap and his hands, finally resting, and looked at nothing. Brent Halloran sat against the counter a long time before he could stand. When he finally got up, he did not go to his office. He crossed the floor to the old man on the chair and stood in front of him the way a man stands when ground he was sure of has moved under him. "You told me," Halloran said, "this afternoon, about the relock. You told me twice, and I made a joke about you playing doctor." It was not the manager voice. "You could have let the certified team handle it. Protocol. Nobody would have blamed you. It was not your job. I made sure every day for a year that you knew it was not your job." "A door does not check whose job it is," Wendell said. "It just needs opening." "Why did you do it?" Wendell looked past him, at the open vault, at the girl in the blanket. "Because she says good morning to me," he said. "That is the whole reason, and it is enough of one. It has always been enough. Most people just never find out that it is." Delia found him there a few minutes later, a blanket around her shoulders, and she did not reach for a thank you, because there was no thank you the size of what had just happened. She sat down next to him on the floor. "You said you have a son," she said. "I do. Does he know you could still do that? The thing you just did?" She looked at the open vault, at the door hanging easy on its hinge. "The listening part, not the opening part. Does he know you finally learned the listening part?" Wendell Fry did not answer for a while. "No," he said. "He does not." "He should," Delia said. "You saved my life tonight with the exact thing he told you that you could not do. That is not nothing, Wendell. That is the whole thing. That is the only thing." She pulled the blanket tighter. "If somebody spent 12 years learning the one thing I said I needed from them, I would want to know, even if I did not pick up. I would want the phone to ring." "He might not open the door," Wendell said. 12 years is a long time to stay angry at a man." "Then you will be standing where I was tonight," Delia said. "On the wrong side of a door, waiting. And you, of all the people in the world, know exactly what to do on the wrong side of a door. You wait. You tap so he knows you're still there. And you do not force it." She almost smiled. "You taught me that through 18 inches of steel about an hour ago. Take your own lesson, old man." The storm was blowing itself out by the time the fire trucks left, and the regional man's certified team never did make it over the flooded bridge. And in the morning, there would be reports, and a relock that had been dragging for months and never got fixed because a real technician came only twice a year and the handyman did not count, and a manager who would tell the story for the rest of his life a little differently than it happened, more kindly to himself, except on the nights he could not sleep, when he would tell it true. There would be a version of the branch, after tonight, that knew the name of the man who oiled its locks. That was the small justice, and it would come or it would not. And Wendell Fry was not going to sit in a room and wait to see. He gathered his coat and his oil can and his stethoscope. Brent Halloran caught him at the door, and for once did not toss anything or straighten anything, just stood there like a man who did not have the tools for what he wanted to say. "I do not know how to," Halloran started. "You do not have to," Wendell said. "You learned her name tonight, learn everybody's. That is the whole apology, and it is a better one than words." He almost smiled. "Get the relock fixed, the real one, not twice a year. A door should open when it is supposed to." He went out into the wet parking lot. Delia caught him at his truck, a blanket still around her shoulders, her hands still not quite steady. "What?" "You are going to call him," she said. "Your son. I can tell by your face you already decided." "I am not going to call him." Her face started to fall, and then he finished it. "I am going to go stand in front of his door," Wendell said. "A phone is just a smaller way of shouting through a wall, and I have done enough shouting through walls to last me. This one I do the other way, in person. And then the part I have never once managed in my life, which is to go quiet and let him be the one who decides." Delia looked at him a long moment, then stepped in and hugged the old man who oiled the locks, quick and hard. "Go get your brother out of that house," Wendell said. "That was the plan. Get your brother. Do not die in a vault. You did the hard one first." The air smelled like the end of the storm, washed and cold. He sat in his old truck for a minute with his hands on the wheel, and then he took his phone out and he found the number he had not called in 12 years, the one he had never deleted and never dialed, and he looked at it a long time. He did not call it, not from a parking lot. A thing like that you do not do over a phone. He had learned tonight, at 60, holding a girl's life on the tip of a listening. He should have learned at 30, that some doors you have to go and stand in front of. So he started the truck and he drove. Across town, through the tail of the storm, to a street he knew, and a small house with a light on in the front room. His son's house, where his son was 34 years old, 12 years unspoken to, awake behind a door. Wendell Fry stood on the step in the last of the rain. He raised his hand to knock. And he understood, standing there, that this was the one lock he had never known how to open, and that the trick to it, the only trick, the one it had taken him a broken life and a sealed vault and a girl with a jar lid to learn, was that you do not open this kind of door at all. You knock, and then you go quiet. And then you listen. He almost turned around. 12 years builds up behind a door like water behind a dam, and for a second the old want came back. The want to force it, to pound on the wood and shout his son's name through it until it opened out of nothing but noise. His hand even made the fist. Then he opened the fist. He knocked. And the story leaves him there, on the step, with his hand fallen back to his side and his whole life held in his chest, listening. The way he should have listened 12 years ago. The way he had finally learned to listen tonight. For the sound on the other side of a door of a man deciding whether to open it.